Good evening. I am Steve. This is my rock and metal life. And tonight I'm going to discuss something that I didn't discuss a whole lot over the years because I didn't think it was important. I didn't think it was a big deal. But I'm going to be talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the odd turn of events that has gone on with that, uh, whatever you want to call it, type of institution. Very strange organization, in my opinion, and I've never really dug how they went about their business. But they had a little bit of a change of heart lately, and I'm going to discuss that briefly. This is actually, I'm going to label this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame discussion part one because this needs to be a discussion with Ace. I'd like to discuss this, kick this around with Ace. We've had numerous conversations. Ace, of course, is my son, if you don't know. And he is just, we're having a weird day where it's getting late out here in California. I'm up and at 'em. I got all kinds of energy. I'll probably be up way late into the night, and Ace is wiped out there on the couch, and we're just kind of on opposite schedules right now. So I want to get this thing up there and get going because in discussing what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has done, just briefly, in case you don't know, there's been just some amazingly egregious omissions to the Rock Hall, and there's been some nastiness. The Rock Hall, in my opinion, says, "Look, we'll tell you, who gets nominated. We'll tell you if you're elected, who you can bring, uh, stuff like that I don't care for." And as everybody knows, they've let in some people that most of us wouldn't consider to be rock and roll, but then they've turned around and said, well, rock and roll doesn't necessarily mean just the music that Elvis and Buddy Holly and those guys brought forward. It means anybody that rocks the boat, shook up the world, whatever, from the music standpoint. And so that's fine. I honestly don't really have too much of a problem with them putting Grandmaster Flash in and, some bands like that. That's fine with me. It doesn't really matter because it's just a Hall of Fame. It's not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, I don't think. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to put those people in there, there's some that they've omitted, and this episode right here, since I don't have Ace available, I'm gonna pivot after I do my little spiel on the Rock Hall, and we're gonna talk about Foreigner, because Foreigner was one of the ones that's been left out all these years, and there was an actual shouting match, I guess, between Mick Jones and one of the guys that runs the thing. And I'm not going to go into detail about anybody that runs it. I'm not using any of their names. I'm just not going down that road. But anyway, Mick Jones apparently saw a whole bunch of the bands that were out there when Foreigner was popular, and he had to sit down with people at the Rock Hall, and it got nasty. And Mick Jones was told, it'll never happen. You guys are never going in, so have a good day. And that's all over the internet, of course, if you think I'm making it up. But anyway, apparently the main individual that threw those words at Mick, he's no longer involved for other reasons I don't want to get into. And so they've had the first set of nominees since that dude's not involved in it. And hey, what do you know? Foreigner's on there. So is Ozzy Osbourne. And I don't know. I got the list in front of me right here, and so I'm gonna read off of the list when I go into a little bit more of what the Rock Hall means to me. But I mean, it's just, if you're not familiar with how big Foreigner was, and let me say this, okay? What constitutes Rock Hall induction, and I should probably, I'm sure they got a page on their webpage here. I should probably look that up. What does it mean? Somebody who did what, I know it's not an album sales contest, I know it's not just, the guys that had the Macarena, they're not in there. They shouldn't be because they have like a huge record. I understand that. Foreigner, man. I mean, come on. Come on. How could they not be in there? Any history of rock and roll, whatever. If you're a metal guy like me, if you're, you know, one of the people that came along when power ballads were big and rock music. I mean, I don't care what corner of the world you come from. If you're a music fan, Foreigner made their mark. It's a huge mark. Their album sales are just absurd, And having been there, I'm telling you, they were everywhere. They always had a record out, from 70, what was it, 77 to, they did 77, 78, 79, and then Foreigner 4 came out in 81. Uh, I mean, I'm talking about the day the Foreigner debut came out. From that point forward, these guys were staples on the radio, and until they slowed down the production in the mid to late 80s, I mean, they always had. The new record came out, there was something huge on it. There were a bunch of songs that were, maybe not huge, but everybody knew them. This band is like, uh, it's like I've always mentioned that like Eddie Money is a guy that I don't know anybody that says that Eddie Money's their favorite band, but everybody loves Eddie Money, and they've heard so many of his songs. And you could go to one of his concerts, and he could play for an hour, and everybody in the audience knows all the songs basically. Foreigners that times I don't know what times a factor of 10, because they had the album sales. They had the I'm looking at just Wikipedia's wrap up, starting with Foreigner, 5 times platinum, Double Vision 7 times platinum, Head Games 5 times, Foreigner 4 6 times, and I want to tell you, Foreigner 4 was essentially my junior year in high school. That was like the original Def Leppard Hysteria. That was the record that songs just kept coming out and going up and coming out, and right. I mean, that record was like the first one in my era that it was like, man, that thing is just an absolute powerhouse. And then Agent Provocateur 3 times platinum, and then Inside Information didn't do so well. It was just a platinum album. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, these guys were just a force. Everybody loved them all around the world. They can't not be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It just can't be. Okay, but here we were all these years, and then to prove the point, as soon as the one guy that's got the axe to grind is out of the way, okay, they're on the next list of nominees. So again, it just underscores what I think of the Rock Hall. These guys, gatekeepers and all that. I just, I don't like that they tell Journey which guys can come. They do that for everybody, but I mean, they tell Kiss who can play, who can't, that kind of thing. I get it that the ceremony, it can't go all night, but honestly, it could if they wanted it to. But, I don't know. I don't know what you do about, like Journey, the guy Arnel Pineda's been in it for so long. He's such a big part of the band, but did they invite him? I don't know if they did or not. They may have. And I'm telling you, my knowledge is spotty because I have not been following along. I remember the very first one. I want to say it was in '89, and they had the Stones and all the early pioneers. They had them. But I remember the Stones were such a huge deal because you had the thing where Jagger and Richards hadn't been getting along, and then they were back together. And then I remember Mick, it was like a big love fest. And I remember Mick saying something about, it's amazing to be rewarded for 25 years of bad behavior. And, at the time I was like, wow, 25 years, my goodness, And now it's been, more than 30 years since then, and the Stones are on tour this year. So anyway, I do believe it got off to a real good start with Beach Boys and all those guys. And then over the years, they put in people that, it's their criteria, it's their Hall of Fame, whoever runs it. So again, they can do whatever they want, and I can say whatever I want. So here's the list of the nominees for this year, and I don't know how many get in. I don't know what the story is here. I know they got fan voting going on. I've never bothered to even look at that. Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, Cher, Dave Matthews, Eric B. and Rakim, Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Jane's Addiction, Kool and the Gang, Lenny Kravitz, Oasis, Sinead O'Connor, Ozzy Osbourne, Sade, A Tribe Called Quest. And yeah, I look at that list and it's indicative of, uh, you know, right away you just got to throw rock and roll out of there. Like what most people have thought rock and roll means for years. It's a music hall of fame. And if you're saying, well, rock and roll doesn't have to mean, 4/4, 3 chord, power rock, okay, that's fine. That's good. It doesn't have to be rhythm or blues, whatever. But like, if you're saying, oh, somebody that shook up the thing, somebody that made a big splash, shifted the paradigm, whatever you want to call it. Mariah Carey, I mean, just mainstream pop music, very, 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 very good, belongs in any music hall of fame. And her album sales are absolutely insane. So if we're going by that, she would be in too. But anyway, I mean, there's your list. Should and so I'm sitting here flying the colors of the Scorpions because they're not in, and what my brain tells me rock and roll is can't have a Hall of Fame without these guys. You can't. Ozzy Osbourne, he's never been nominated before because he ran his mouth. He went in with Black Sabbath, but he said he wouldn't even be going there if it wasn't for the Sabbath guys, and he doesn't care about that place. Blah 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 blah, and he shouldn't. And I'm glad that he has that to say. But if like the guy, don't like the guy, respect his image or not, don't like his TV show, whatever. Can't have a Rock Hall of Fame without the guy. I mean, you can't possibly do it. Presided over the era of heavy dark rock. I don't know, man. It's just, this is an argument that I just always chose not to participate in. Didn't really care. Didn't think it was a big deal. However, this coincides with me binging Foreigner the last probably month or so. Before I knew this was going to happen, I got back into my Foreigner CDs, and I've been watching lots and lots of videos. And I'm telling you what, all that survives, I got my shirt, probably one of my coolest, most favorite shirts I got off of their website. It's got Mick's Les Paul, and then all their like absolutely huge songs, like all mixed in there. I only saw Foreigner. I saw him twice. Okay, never saw him with Lou Gramm. I saw him one time with that Johnny Edwards. They came to the Fresno Fair, and I saw him. And that was like, that was a one-off deal where they had Johnny Edwards. They made a record, no Lou Gramm, and those songs pretty good, but it went nowhere. And then the second time I saw him was with Kelly Hansen, and that was probably, 2008, something like that. They came to a casino around here, and that show actually was the show, I may have mentioned this before, I was always on the fence about tribute bands, separate subject. Tribute bands, I thought, oh my gosh, there's a Rat tribute band, there's a Motley Crue, there's a, Van Halen, there's a this, there's a that. And, I at this point in time, whatever that was, like 2008 or whatever it was, I was kind of on the fence about tribute bands. I had seen the Atomic Punks, and the Atomic Punks were absolutely fantastic. And they had guitar players that went to, David Lee Roth would pluck their guitar player for his band. And I remember I kind of had a weird feeling about that. It's like, well, I don't have a chance to see Van Halen, and there is no Van Halen with David Lee Roth, at the time. And, I'm talking about late 90s, early 2000s. So I went to that, but like all other tribute bands, when they started popping up, I was like, oh gosh, is that, all these concerts I've been to, I've seen the real deal. Do I really want to go to tribute bands? And then at the same time, you've got all this attrition in these major bands. And I mean, you've got Bruce Dickinson leaving Iron Maiden, and they make a record with Blaze, and on and on and on. And some of these bands, there's two of the five guys are still around, and they're still touring, not even the original singer. Okay, what do you do with that? Should we go to see these? Well, when I saw Foreigner at this casino, it was Mick Jones, just like it is now. Mick Jones and a cast of, I don't know, 7, 8 other guys. It's a huge band, and it's a fantastic band. They play the songs faithfully. But I remember driving up there, I was like, yeah, I'm going to see Foreigner, kind of, was the way I thought about it. And then, the show started, and I want to say they started with Double Vision. I just looked this up the other day. They started with Double Vision, and they started with Mick Jones center stage. He played the opening riff, and they played the song, and the crowd of course goes crazy, and then they play another absolutely huge song, and then they play Hot Blooded. They play I don't remember. They played so many hits. But that was the night when I said, wow, the audience reaction, just the piano for Cold as Ice, the beginning of Jukebox Hero. Crowd went bananas, and it was like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people, something like that, in this little outdoor venue. And that was the night that I said, you know what? Like, these songs mean a lot to a lot of people. And a night of just playing, hearing Foreigner songs. I'm telling you, I'm a guy. I would go to a local club on Foreigner night or Aerosmith night or whatever night, and just I'd sit there all night and listen to them play, greatest hits, play the Rocks album in its entirety, play Double Vision, play Van Halen's first, whatever. I would do that. Okay, to see it in a live setting, this is a celebration. It's a celebration of the music. We're past, has Foreigner, reached it? Has it gone past its prime? Is its best days behind it? Well, yeah. It's that big rush of the 70s and 80s and into the 90s of releasing an album, it climbs the charts, and do they still have the momentum? Are they still popular? That we're way past that. The legacy is whatever it is, and if Mick Jones is out there touring that thing, I want to hear those songs. I think that's a night well spent. And so that was the night that I kind of flipped on the whole thing. I'll go see a UFO tribute band. If it works out. Those songs, where else can I get them? It's not, it's not like the old days where they're all coming one after another. We're lucky to get anybody out of the big ones here, and I travel a lot. I see shows in Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and it's just not like it used to be. And the ones I used to see in big arenas, I'm seeing them in small places with, whatever odd lineup they show up with, and whatever the singer's abilities are, that's what I get, So, Foreigner touring with Kelly Hansen, faithfully hitting those songs, I'll take it, And their Vegas residency that's coming up in March, man, I want to go to that, but we got travel scheduled somewhere else over that time, a big part of that time frame, so I don't know if I'm going to make that, but anyway, so that's my thinking on Foreigner. I've got, a few artifacts back here. All that survives from my high school and military days is the Head Games cassette. I may have more. I had Foreigners, their first few records. I had them on vinyl up to Foreigner 4. And then I think this was just one of those deals that I had to have this driving around in my car, so I bought this because I know I had this. This was Head Games was one of the first records I had, one of the first vinyl records ever. So I got that, and then I've got the first record, and I've got Double Vision here. I don't have Foreigner 4, but I've been playing the crap out of it on YouTube lately, and it's every bit as good as I remember. And then the other thing they had in their prime, I can't remember, like after Foreigner 4, I think, and before Agent Provocateur, they came out with the greatest hits. It was called Records, and I think it had like 10 songs on it. But then down the road, gosh, this is in the 90s, I think. They came out with this greatest hits, and this has 20 songs on it, and it goes up to it has "Say You Will" and "Soul Doctor." Those are the last songs on it. This is pretty good. And then much later with Kelly Hansen, they came out with this "No End in Sight," and this has 2 discs and it's 32 songs. And this like has a few more songs from Foreigner 4 than this has. This has "Nightlife" and "Break It Up," and then this one only has "Urgent," "Waiting for a Girl Like You," "Jukebox Hero." That's all they got. So I mean, it goes in a little more depth, and it's got at least one new song from Kelly Hansen, and then it's got some live songs at the end, including the very last track is "Jukebox Hero" / "Whole Lot of Love." And that's pretty good. So that's what I have, and then somewhere along the line, I bought this picture disc of Head Games, and it's got the Foreigner 40 logo here, and it's got this really weird shrink wrap on it. So I don't know if I can get it to where you. But it's the record. It's the record front and back. You know, the actual, what was on the sleeve. And that's pretty much all I got from them. But I just been playing them so much. Mick Jones, an odd kind of guitar hero. He's got iconic riffs. He's got, he's like a master of songwriting. He comes up with so much good stuff. And I know, Lou Gramm, and oh gosh, there's a record, or there's an interview that came out this last week where Lou Gramm is talking about how burned up he is, and still really upset with Mick over songwriting credits on "I Want to Know What Love Is," and there's been times we thought they kind of buried the hatchet. They about 6-7 years ago, they played together on the 40th anniversary tour. The existing Foreigner brought back all the original guys, and there's a video out there where Mick introduces the guys that are no longer in the band from the heyday, and he brings them out, and Lou Gramm's last, and Mick gets like emotional, and like his voice is emotional, and he says, "Oh, my dear friend Lou Gramm will always be dear friend," blah blah blah. And here we are, 2024, and these guys are in their 70s, and Lou's like, "Hey, we haven't really resolved that," and boy, it's just it's the kind of stuff that, as I've said before, I want everybody to get along. I want them all to, I want everybody to make everything right and bury whatever hatchet there was. And I want everybody to say, "Hey, look, we're way down the line in life. We're no longer in that competitive aspect where we're, trying to outdo the other bands, and we're all trying to prove our own worth, and it's so easy for me to sit here and say it. But I realized many years ago that some of these things just aren't going to get worked out. And that's fine. It's not for me to, I can sit here all night and say, "Oh, well, he should say, he should quit worrying about that, and, he should really say something about this situation." Whatever. That's not my business, really. And so I'll take whatever I get. And, maybe if they get inducted to the Rock Hall, maybe they'll make good and, all that. But anyway, just Foreigner. Really, really digging Foreigner these days. Never really had a stretch in my life where I kind of thought, they're not that good anymore. They're not as good as I remember. They've always been a band that really, really delivers. If you want to play any one of their CDs, the first one, the first record, going back through all this, I kind of forgot how good this was. I knew it had the 3 heavyweights. Feels Like the First Time, Cold as Ice, Long, Long Way from Home, and then like Star Rider, I never really cared for, but I know that's a favorite. But this whole thing's, really solid all the way through. Double Vision, not so much. It's not bad, but it's not as good as that. And then Head Games, a little bit different, but man, they came back on Foreigner 4 like they were just a juggernaut at that point. They were so good. And they continued on being good after that. I didn't really follow them after Foreigner 4. I got Agent Provocateur. I did not get Inside Information, I don't believe. I've never had that one. And then Unusual Heat in 91. I think that's the Johnny Edwards deal. And then they came back with Lou Gramm again with Mr. Moonlight. I've never heard that. And then Can't Slow Down is this thing from 2009. So, hey, Foreigner, uh, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, something I don't normally want to talk about, but kind of some weirdness out there, some kind of worth talking about a little bit, I guess. They're including my guys now, some of my guys that they've excluded. Should I care? I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit more with Ace down the road whenever me and him can line everything up to sit down and kick it around for an hour or so. But that's it for now. I guess I am going to pay attention to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. I don't know, probably watch it. I don't know. I have no idea. It's too early to tell, but we'll talk about some more later. Go Foreigner.